your own loud.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Loud. This is Matt Halloran, and guess what, everybody? We are talking to a friend of mine from across the pond, and so I want to say hi to everybody who's on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, everybody who's listening and watching. I want to say hello to all of you. It's wonderful to have you here. Now, Steve Ody is somebody who I met through a couple of other podcasting friends. I had the privilege of being on his show, The Traveling Optimist, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. But you know what? When you meet somebody and there's something about them and you're like, yeah, this guy's like a genuinely good human being. But not only that, but he uses his voice to really tell a lot of people really good stuff. I mean, the idea of the traveling optimist, we're going to talk about the foundations behind that, but it's a wonderful podcast, and please make sure that you subscribe to it, and we'll make sure that we have links in not only the show notes, but also here in the live stream. So Steve, welcome to the show, brother.
Oh, thank you, Matt. It's really good to see you. Thanks for having me on the show.
I absolutely love your show. So those people, we just put it on the screen, and we'll make sure again it's in the notes to look at the Traveling Optimist podcast. But before we get into that, I want to know your story. So how did you get to become who you are today?
Well, I come from a very ordinary background. Hardworking dad, hardworking mum, had a great childhood full of love, had some difficulties when I was younger. Generally speaking, I had a great childhood, loved riding my bike. We lived in a part of the world called the Peak District, which was just an amazing place to grow up. And ultimately, my parents had to move back down south. Where that is located is in a fairly deprived area. So my parents made the decision to move south towards London in the mid-'80s, or the early 80s. And just really to give my brother and I a chance at a job. And which is a big sacrifice because, they had to take on a bit more debt. And I'll always be grateful, to them for taking that risk, really. But generally speaking, it was I had a really great childhood. Getting into work when I left school, I sort of fell into travel, and I've been in travel all my life. I've been in there ever since, so 30 something years, and sort of grew into travel. Started my own business in 2004. Wish I'd done it a bit earlier. But hey ho, everything happens for a reason. And and then COVID hit. And so it spent sort of 15, 16 years of progressing and building a brick wall from a travel perspective. But travel has given me a lot of benefits. I mean, I would never have met my wife if I had not been in travel. I would never have been lucky enough to go to a lot of places around the world because of being in that industry. And it's given me a lot of amazing memories. So, yeah, that's it in a sort of a nutshell.
All right. So hold on. You met your wife while
Yes.
traveling or because of the industry? Give me
No, because
we
we're in the industry. Yeah. So we worked at the same company. And actually is an interesting story because when I first started in travel, I was selling travel insurance. But it was a company name called Derek Fisher Travel Insurance. And I was selling that insurance when I first started in travel. And when I left that particular business, started working for another company, and this particular lady started the company about 6 months later, or 10 months later. And her name was Maria Fisher. I didn't realize it, but I was selling his dad's traveling insurance. It's a weird world, right?
Huh. On the list of places that you've traveled, what has been the most life impacting?
Definitely Africa. Whenever you go to Africa, you leave a piece of your heart, no question. And it's an incredible continent. Generally speaking, I've been lucky enough to go to East Africa and Southern Africa a lot, and just the whole beautiful, the landscapes, the people, the wildlife. It's just an amazing place, really cool place.
Well, let's get a little bit more specific because Africa is an absolutely humongous continent, right? So if you were going to say, hey, if I could go back to one place in Africa and leave my entire heart there, where would it be?
Okay. Oh God, I'd have to leave it in three places: Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda.
Okay. All right.
So I'd have to split it in three,
That's all right.
and that's just because they're just beautiful places. Kenya was the first African country that I traveled to, and I just remember going going on safari for your first time. We stayed in these tents in the bush by the river, and on the first night you hear this incredible noise outside the camp, and then you wake up the next morning and you're told that a pride of lions had killed an antelope or something by the gates of the camp. And then that morning you go on a walking safari with a guide who's only got like a bow and arrow, and you're thinking, hold on a minute, 4 hours ago there were lions outside here. So that was kind of the introduction to going on safari, which is amazing. And then Tanzania and the famous sort of Serengeti, and which is this beautiful national park, incredible wildlife, and chimpanzees in Mahali, and wild dogs in Katavi, and then Uganda with the chimpanzees and also the gorillas as well, which is just awesome place.
So when you were talking about this, the kind of setup on your story, you were in the travel industry for a very, very long time, but you're in the process of making a major life change. There is a lot of trust there and a lot of optimism that needs to go into making you're making an entirely different career change. Where have you found to draw the strength from to deal with the trials and tribulations that are going into not only the fear of going into a new venture, but the level of confidence, study, education? I mean, you're checking all these boxes, Steve. Let's talk about that a little bit, please.
So, COVID has been great on one side, but it's been really difficult on the other. I'm sure that millions and millions of people would be able to relate to that. I don't want to be in the position where I'm reliant on travel anymore, because I can see that if something else happens like COVID, I just don't want to be reliant on that stream of income. So you're absolutely right. I've taken exams to become a mortgage broker, which is completely different in terms of industry, but it's not really, because it's all about serving clients, Matt. And that's what I love. It's just a different product. But I've always been I've never been daunted by stuff like that. This is going to sound, I don't want it to sound really brash or anything, but I just take that kind of thing in my stride. If I've got to do something, I just do it. And ultimately, I've got a roof. I've got to provide a roof over my head for my family. Got to put food in the fridge, and so you just got to do what you've got to do. Really, that's where it comes from.
But Steve, there's a lot of people who are fiercely stubborn, who don't want to have change, and in your ability to embrace that with such enthusiasm and again optimism, where did that come from? I mean, I just want you to know that I share that with you, but we are not normal. And so was there a situation in life when you're like, yep, that was the time where I took a risk and I beat it, or I got it, or I embraced the change? Because part of who you are is that embracing of the change. Where do you think that came from?
Change. There's certain parts of my life where change was difficult, and I refused to do it. And so, as an example, I think I stayed in work with one particular company for too long. I was too comfortable. I didn't want to change, and I wish I had done. But there we go. But I would say that that sort of fearlessness and optimism for that kind of thing stems from early on in my life, where I have a grandmother who, in the 1950s, had a lung condition, tuberculosis. She had to have a lung removed, and in those days, that was a pretty hairy thing to have done. And she was in rehab for 2 years and stuff. So this is a lady that really began to appreciate life after that, and that message was given to me really through her, I think. And so I've always been optimistic about the future. I think it actually change is a good thing. Although I didn't do it in my working career, I've always looked at opportunities and and things with open mind, much to the chagrin of my wife Maria, and tried various things. This is not, I'm not like the finished article, multi-millionaire or anything like that who's stumbled upon one thing. It's just, I've done various things and cut my teeth on new things and learnt new skills and tried to improve myself, so that's kind of where it comes from.
I want to talk about optimism for a moment, because there are people who are listening to this who are probably thinking, what in God's name do you have to be optimistic about? Right? I mean, optimism is almost blind faith in the idea that things are better than they are. How do you respond to that?
I wouldn't say blind faith. So I'm a naturally optimistic person, but it's not an unrealistic optimism. It's not naive. It's realistic. I'm not somebody who would sit there and just say, oh, it's all rainbows and unicorns. But I definitely believe that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And whether I've got my back when my back's against the wall, like it was this time last year or before March, that's the time when I was suddenly realizing, actually, do you know what? I might not have a business. If things don't improve, it didn't improve. So, I had to make a decision very quickly on two counts. I had to go out and, believe in myself to go out and do some consultancy work, which I did. And then that created the momentum. That was because it's all about moving forward. That's what it is. You keep moving forward, and then things suddenly click, things happen, and that's what happened, really. And then I had a conversation with a good friend of mine, Doug, who is an independent financial advisor. He was talking about mortgages, and I said, "Oh, that sounds interesting." He said, "Yeah, you'd be really good at that." And I said, "What makes you think that?" He said, "I don't know. You're really good with clients. You love serving people." And he said, "You should do it." So I've taken exams for that now, and I've got one set to go, and then I should be qualified, or will be qualified. And that's But I didn't sort of sit back and think, "Oh, woe is me." This time last year, I needed to do something because I needed to pay the mortgage, and B, I needed to do something just for my own sanity. And that's one of the reasons why I set up the Traveling Optimist podcast as well.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's move to that real quick. So you started the podcast out of personal necessity to connect with people who are optimistic as you. Talk about the process of the podcast and how you've prepare yourself for your show and how you're finding guests and really what you feel like you're getting out of this specifically.
Well, initially I was a guest on somebody's podcast, and it was the most horrendous interview, Matt. Oh my God, I was awful. I mean, I can't believe it. I can't even listen to it because it's dreadful. But but I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, being a guest is totally different to being a host, but I really enjoyed it, and I thought, oh, I'd love to do a podcast. That'd be really cool. So I just YouTubed and looked at what you have to do to set up a podcast. I had no experience, so I did do that, and I set it all up on this podcast platform. I thought, okay, what we're going to call it? Traveling Optimist. Yeah, I love travel. I'm an optimist, so let's call it the Traveling Optimist. Okay, that's really organic. There's nothing sort of preset about it. There was no no plan. That was it. And yeah, I just wanted to share uplifting stories and with interesting people to try and help others that might be feeling that might need a lift. Do you know? And that is all it is. And it's kind of morphed into this amazing show. I love doing it. Oh my God, I really love it. And I like the whole process, and it's an opportunity for me, really from my heart to serve other people. And I want the pod is really to benefit others. It's nothing to do with me. And when I first started out, it was all about COVID. I wanted to try and help people with COVID and certain things. And if the premise is still the same, if I can help just one person, then I think the podcast has done its job. I'm not all about, I do look at the numbers, but it doesn't motivate me. It really doesn't. I'm always getting emails and messages, on LinkedIn to say how great it is and thanks very much. And you must be earning a fortune from doing it. And I'm thinking, no, I'm not.
Well,
no, I love it.
And I think I'm glad that you said that, because, you do run a very successful podcast. You had some pretty amazing people on the show, not just pretty amazing people. You have had some amazing people on the show. But your focus and your intention isn't to have it being a revenue generating thing, which allows, I think, for a level of purity in the world of podcasting, and making it so that you are doing it for the right reasons. What was the biggest thing that you had to overcome with your podcast, that if you knew a year and a half ago when you started that you would have started maybe a little bit faster, you'd have a faster ramp up time? What are some of the lessons that you've learned with that?
I wouldn't be so OCD about the production of it, I think. And that's just naivety of the podcast. That was, I just wanted it to be perfect. Well, actually, you don't need it to be perfect. And I'm a prime example of that. I still, and I say the words awesome. Oh, that's so cool. Way too much. I still do it, but I am getting better. If I look back at the first 10 to the last 10, I think that there's a massive improvement actually, and so I'm really proud of that. Absolutely, I love it. Yeah, really cool. That's my one thing.
Well, and I absolutely agree. There is a raw nature about podcasts that make people connect in a little different way. And you don't have to be vocally perfect. This isn't radio. It's not television, right? It's Joe Schmuckatellis like you and I, who are going ahead and getting behind the microphone and hopefully making somebody's life a little bit better, which leads me to this. Now, I wanted to focus on your trips to Africa and where you wanted to go, because one of the things that you and I both firmly believe is a very, very specific word. And I actually don't know the dialect, so you'd have to share that with the audience. But the definition of this word is I am because you are. And I want to just take a moment to break that apart a little bit. Here in the States, the biggest issue I feel we're having is it's all about me. I'm the only person who matters. If it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect anybody else. And this African word really forces you to think that the only reason why I am who I am is because you are who you are. So therefore, I'm going to help you be the best you, and you help me be the best me. So one, start with the word. Two, if you know the origin. And three, how do you implement this into your existence period?
Okay. So the word is Ubuntu. Okay. And it's a Zulu word, which is in South Africa. And it means, like you said, I am because you are. But it's a bit more than that. It's about kindness. It's about compassion. It's a spirit of togetherness. It's the ability for everybody to work together and accomplish something by helping others achieve what they want to achieve. That's basically what it is. And it's an incredible ethos to kind of live by, really. I'm not nervous about saying it, but it's a beautiful word, and it's a beautiful way to live your life, really. And I really mean that, because the way that I incorporate that into my life is really just with everything. It's all about, compassion and kindness is something that I'm really all about. As if you cut me open and have the words in my body, but I love doing it, and that's all part of being an optimistic person and positive person as well. And Ubuntu fits nicely with that optimism, the level of optimism that I have. And I within my whole daily routine, those I can't achieve what I want to achieve without the help of other people, and it's embracing that and understanding it, and also letting those other people know that I couldn't process that particular bit of work without your help, and I really appreciate it. That's kind of where I'm at.
Well, we are nothing alone, right? And yes, there's so much more complexity. In fact, every time I hear that word, I think of this picture that was shared on some social media, and an American had put something in uh, a distance from this group of young kids, and said whoever is the first there gets the whole thing. And they all kind of held hands and walked in a line together, and then they all shared it, right? And when asked, they said, well, why wouldn't I want to share that with my friends, right? This sort of rugged individualism that I don't think necessarily lends to a greater society, I think can be summed up in just that word, right? Anybody who's listening to this, you didn't do it all by yourself. And no, not even close. You have relied on so many more people. And that really lends to something that you said. So you said kindness and compassion, but that also really bubbles up something else that if they cut you open inside, Steve, that they're going to find, which is a word called gratitude. Let's talk a little bit about how gratitude has not only allowed you to solidify you as a person, but also has opened up some doors for you, because it has.
Yeah, it has. I was a bit of a late starter with that word, actually, and I hadn't it hadn't been on my register. I'm not an ungrateful person. I don't think that, but it's not something which a word that I particularly focus on, and it's something actually, if you can harness that particular element really of your life, gratitude. Big things and really great things can happen, and I really believe that as well, Matt. I really, because it was literally about 5 years ago, I think, where I had my coach, a lady called Louise, who's an incredible person, and she unlocked loads of little things with me that were holding me back, sort of limiting beliefs, really. So she unlocked all of that stuff, and we started talking about gratitude then, and ever since then, things have just been amazing. Really, from that perspective in my life, I've always been very lucky. I don't touch wood. I don't. When I'm talking about this kind of thing, I'm not saying that everything's bright and rosy, and I'm not looking through life through rose-tinted glasses or anything like that. But my business, and it took several sessions with Louise to sort of think about this and be grateful for it. But my business, I was never really in business to be a billionaire or anything like that. I wanted to be able to see my two daughters grow up. And that, having my own business, has enabled me to do that. And I am so grateful for that. I mean, things that I've been able to do that I wouldn't have been able to do if I was working for somebody else. I can't tell you how. I mean, I get really emotional about it, because I'm so lucky. And Sophia and Olivia are 21 and 17 now, and I've seen every sports day, I've seen every production, I've seen every nativity play, I've been to every teachers' evening, reports nights, that kind of thing. Oh, it's just been amazing, and I'm so blessed. I really, and that's from a gratitude perspective, that's the biggest. That's where I'm so grateful for. But you're grateful. You're a grateful. I mean, if you think about it, throughout your life, I know a little bit about that.
Well, and every day's a gift, right? I mean, it's people think that that's a cliche, but when you've had experiences in your life where you don't know if tomorrow's going to happen, it really does change the perspective. My mother's 78, and I just saw her this weekend, and she was talking about that. She's like, Matt, every day I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I got another day. So what am I going to do with it? And I think by being grateful for really, really simple, basic things that we take for granted can make a big difference. Now, but you also said something there that people, and I'm looking for advice here. So when people say to you, because I don't know if you hear this as much as I do, when you have kids, you blink and all of a sudden they're grown up. Do you feel that way?
Yes. I do. I mean, I can't believe, my eldest Sophia is 21. She's leaving university next year. And Olivia's going into university next September. And I'm thinking, these are two baby girls. They were like so high, and I remember their first days at school, in their brand new uniform. And then all of a sudden they're going up, they're going clubbing, and well, Olivia isn't, but she will be soon. They're going to the pub, and just. But yeah, that's. I'm so lucky to have had so much great times with them. It's brilliant. So lucky.
Yeah,
and I love it.
Well, and I think gratitude can color that sort of feeling of whatever, because when you are grateful for the time that you spent with your girls and the opportunity that you had to spend the time with them, um, I feel that changes timelines. There's some very interesting research out there about being very, very grateful, mindful, thankful, and compassionate, on how that actually slows your perception of time down
Yeah.
just a little bit. Um, and I don't know about you, brother, but my wife just told me this weekend I'm on the other side of the hill, which, I mean, I knew that, I know that, but it was interesting, for her to say that to me. And as a ridiculously optimistic person, and as a person who, really looks at every day as a gift, I'm going to say, what, it's okay. What, because climbing up the hill was tough. In sliding down the back end of the hill, I'm assuming it's just going to be easy. That's how I'm going to optimistically look at that.
I like the word sliding. Right,
sliding.
One thing.
I'm not walking, dude. I'm sliding. I'm absolutely sliding down the back end of the hill.
I've never said this to anybody else, but one thing that I do in the morning, is I have this little rock by my bedside, and every morning I get up and I give it a little rub, and I just say in my head what I'm really grateful for every morning. And I don't know how that works, but it's worked for me. Don't know.
It's for you, right? That's a mantra. That's a prayer. It's a repetitive thing that one has to do in order to stay focused. We've had a bunch of coaches, and in fact, didn't you introduce me to your coach?
Yeah, Louise.
Yeah, dude, she's going to be on the show. She blew me away. Like, I was like, whoa, this lady's on a different level. So I'm really excited that she's going to be on the show. But I've had the really huge gift of meeting some of these really top performing coaches. Like Jerome Myers is one who's just an unbelievable coach. We just had a guy who was a keto guy last week. And Robert Sykes, and he was talking about, just discipline and how he really helps people, go to the next level. And almost all of them will say the same thing, which is, one, have a process, trust the process, and follow the process. And that's something that you have talked about too. Would you mind, as we kind of wrap up today's show, talking a little bit about how you live by process?
So when I talk about trust the process, always in the back of my mind, I've got everything happens for a reason. And when you say trust the process, it's kind of that inner belief, that sort of intuitive gut feel. That's what I'm talking about. And so, using me as an example, if you were to have said to me, Steve, you're going to be on a podcast with the mad man Matt Halloran, and talking about life and a few things, and just having a general really awesome conversation and being connected to him and some other incredible people, I would have said, don't be silly. I don't know, what the hell are you talking about? And I think when I'm sort of trusting the process, it's almost like, well, actually, you know what? I didn't know anything about podcasting, but I'm going to trust my intuition, and this is a really good thing to do. So I'm going to do it. And that's what I mean by trust the process.
Yeah.
For me.
Well, if you have gone through the process of knowing yourself, understanding really who you are, it's a lot, I believe it's a lot easier to trust that process, trust that inner dialogue, that whole idea that's going on in your brain, that the words of wisdom that kind of bubble up and seep into your world. If you trust that, in my experience, it has not necessarily always made things super easy, but
Mm.
easy isn't always the equation of success or where you need to go. Sometimes you really do need to, hunker down. So
Yeah.
Steve, if anybody wants to connect with you, be a guest potentially on your show, we've already put up, we're going to make sure that we have links to your show specifically, but what's the best way for people to communicate with you, just to have you in their life?
So the best thing, you can contact me on all the socials: LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. I think you can even email through the podcast website as well. There's Linktree, where everything's there. And if anybody wants to reach out, anybody needs to talk about optimism, let me know. Or if anybody is feeling like they, because Matt, to be fair, it's okay to be optimistic. I've not always been like that, actually, to be honest with you. It's something I missed out at the beginning, really.
Yeah.
And I've not really, it's something I've had to really embrace. Only that, I had some really bad advice when I was younger. And that was, if you don't get your hopes up, then you won't be disappointed.
Oh.
And so that's a really rubbish thing to somebody to say, isn't it? That's really rubbish. So it is okay to be optimistic. Don't like think, oh yeah, I start being optimistic, then if things don't happen, then that's, I have to start again, and it's all rubbish, and that's just not the way it is, really. Be optimistic, be happy, live life, and it's a cliche, I know, but live life with the glass half full, that's it.
And with that, everybody, I want to thank everybody for taking some time and spending it with us today. Please subscribe to the Traveling Optimist podcast. It is worth every minute that you're going to spend with Steve and his wonderful, wonderful guests. And just to kind of sum up here today, optimism isn't a bad word. Be realistic, but also understand that the world can be as wonderful as you want it to be, as long as you're willing to put that energy out into the world and also do the work. And last but not least, Ubuntu as this idea that you are in this alone, and therefore you need to be grateful for everything that surrounds you, all of the people that are in your life, and that you are only you because of all of the other people who have not only come before you, but who will come after you. It's a perspective that I personally think we need a lot more of, especially here in North America, where we're residing right now. Steve, thank you very much for being you, dude. I feel so honored to have you in my circle of friends. I thank you so much for having me on your show, and I wish you all of the greatest success that you could possibly have in your life.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for having me on your show. You do a great job. Keep doing it, and love to everybody. Thanks so much.
All right, if you have not subscribed to this yet, make sure you do. We have a reminder that goes out every Monday when we go live, so click on that remind me button when you're looking at the live stream. And also make sure that you subscribe to the Be Your Own Loud podcast by clicking that subscribe now button. And also, even more importantly, just drop us a quick line on any of your favorite players. Give us a rating, give us a review. We would really appreciate that. So for Steve and all of us here at Proudmouth, we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.